he was unable to even read the letters of the alphabet, all 26 letters. He was unable to successfully do that. So we have a lot of ignorance behind the hitting that goes on in our school, and it's random. There are zero standards. I mean, for one thing, in that school where striking a child may be legal, where does that give a teacher a right to take the palm of her hand and hit a kid in his head, in his forehead? A special ed kid, no less, who's unable to read. So it's sort of an open Pandora box to all hitting, lacking any format at all. Numbers of time a child may be hit, objects. I mean, because we can use a wooden board in some of the southern states, if the teacher doesn't have a wooden board, they go out and they get what they call a switch off the tree, and they beat them with that. Teachers take students as young as preschool. If they are not obeying, they'll take their head and slam it on the desk. That's corporal punishment. So where this occurs is in the classrooms of children who have teachers who lack professional behavior and who are more damaging to them than with the hitting, let alone generally the academic levels are very low. The teacher's manner of delivering lessons is very poor. So we end up with children who are failing to receive an excellent education, and they're being set up for responding to things that they don't like by hitting others. And sometimes that hitting may turn into a gun, or may turn into a knife, or may turn into a fist. But they are being taught, I don't like what you did. You failed to fulfill on something that I wanted, so you're about to get hit. That's the lesson that striking a child produces.
Wow. You know, as a mandated reporter, children often confide into you a lot. And one of the areas that I'm an activist to expose the crimes, the criminal activity within Child Protective Services. And when I moved from Los Angeles a few years ago, there were 1,000 registered pedophiles that were approved foster care placements.
Uh-huh.
And, these children are going through the foster care system, and I report on it every day, the abuse that occurs and the deaths that occur. You as a teacher, these children often confide in you.
Yes, yes. Well, let me tell you just a couple of stories, but I also want you to know that not only are teachers able to physically harm children, they can literally kill a child in their bare hands and continue teaching. And I actually have that story on my website. If you go to my website, thehittingstopshere.com, you'll see a list of documents, and one is the GAO report, and I believe that one was 2009 or 2010. I have one more updated, but that one, I believe, the first story talks about a teacher who literally killed a boy who was in CPS. He was tortured apparently by his original caregivers. I believe they were his parents, or it may have been a family member, but he was kept from having food. And the school was aware of that. And so the teacher that he had would not give him his lunch this particular day, and he was panicking because he was abused and he was starved by his previous parents or guardians. And so he had a very big fear of being hungry, and so the teacher denied him lunch that day. He was beginning to panic. He was getting up, looking in everybody's desk for candy or something. The teacher took him, put him in a basket hole, laid on top of him, and the principal came in a number of times during this period of time that she held him in that way, and the boy died. He suffocated right in front of his classmates. And the teacher was allowed, she was taken to court. The judge said, yes, this is homicide. He dismissed the case. The teacher moved to the state of Virginia, where she continued to teach. And she probably is teaching now, and is registered as having abused a child. So apparently our U.S. Education Committee allows teachers with such backgrounds to enter our classrooms. Now, in addition to that, these stories are kind of sad and hard for me to talk about because these are students that I love and that I've worked with. And I'll tell you, too, when I was living in Los Angeles, one girl who was 14, she was told that she had to drink her urine. Right? This was in CPS. She had a hard time in different schools. Now, she was in California, which pupil beatings were banned at that point. When I was teaching, pupil beatings, I believe, were banned in 85. And Jordan Ryak, my friend, again, he's the one that wrote the legislation for that. But there are other cases where some of our kids, whether they're in CPS and reporting being abused by CPS workers to the school, there's nothing done. One boy that I know, he said the same thing, and it's very interesting how two students from different years reported having to drink their urine as well as being physically assaulted. And this makes me very sad because a lot of times, especially if these children are in pupil beating states, they are dealing with CPS workers who abuse them and then going to school where teachers are abusing them. They have absolutely zero way out of their dilemma. And the bill that I actually am greatly responsible for being in Congress right now, along with a friend of mine who worked with me several years back, and we have a federal bill out, and Amelia, I'm happy to let you know that bill has been reintroduced this year again, the one that you know I've been talking about for years. And yes, it's available. That is great news. It was introduced January 2019. The title is the same, Ending Corporal Punishment in Schools Act. I do not have the number of that bill in front of myself, but over the years since 2010 to present, I have continued to fight for that bill, and it continues to be reintroduced to my joy, and sadly enough, it's very difficult for my having people participate and have this bill passed into law. Now, I want to just kind of branch off just a moment just to tell you how sad this is that people have been quiet on this. In the year, I believe it was around 2012, I somewhere around that period of time, there was the SOPA Act, which was an act where our government decided they didn't like us all over Facebook and Twitter and, you know, all of the public information that we put out, just like this phone call, this radio show that we're doing right now. So SOPA actually had to do with the fact that we have rights and we want to be able to speak, and there's not going to be any shutdown on our communication on these social internet media. And so during that time, now this was January, and again, I wish I had looked up the year, but it was January, and when they were getting ready to shut this down, people started talking about this bill and what was going to happen if it didn't go through, and the government received millions of emails per day, millions of tweets, hundreds of thousands of Facebook posts on this issue of SOPA, S-O-P-A. And within less than a week, they had to turn that bill away. They were not allowed to cut out a lot of things that you and I are doing right now. This would have been illegal for me to say the things I'm saying right now on the air if that would have passed. And so the thing that I'm taking this time to point out is that people do know how to have America be great because They wanted their Facebook. They wanted their Twitter. They wanted to be able to communicate. They heard about this bill that could have shut them down. And people responded because they want to talk. They want that social life. And in the meantime, here it is, a fifth time that my efforts and others who are out there, I don't know too many people who are out there right now fighting for our children to be able to go to school without being beat by these teachers who are totally unprofessional. But I know that we can speak out when there's something that is of interest to ourselves. There's absolutely no reason why Ending Corporal Punishment in Schools Act should have been introduced more than once. But the fact that it's been introduced 5 times and the average American does not even know of its existence, let alone the amount of abuse that our under 18 population is facing at the hands of so-called teachers, is really sad. Because a bill that allowed our freedom on our social media received a response that was just hugely commendable. And then here, to protect children, where is everybody? Where are the people who want our children to be safe and who want America to have children who are growing up without resentment that generally is a part of an increasing criminal percentage of adults out there, because this is how they have learned in our public schools, private, charter, residential as well, how to solve a problem. The wooden board is already deemed a deadly weapon under the U.S. Constitution. So all of it's illegal anyway. But it's the silence that people in these states where it's allowed in our public schools, it keeps it going. Now, again, we do have, and I'm very happy to say that North Carolina is about to ban. I have campaigned in North Carolina 6 times, and I've met with the state superintendent. I've had rallies out there, and they finally have it on the table. I believe there's one more vote on it that would take it out, but it's hard to understand. It's hard for me to understand how, at large, we remain silent over an issue that has to do with the adults these children become. Many of us have little ones. As our little ones are growing up in a society where violence is allowed in school, many of these people, these children who are beaten, grow up and commit similar crimes or raise their children in that way, which have those children commit crimes, because you're learning that if you don't get what you want, you're going to attack, be it with a deadly weapon called a wooden board or a gun, but you learn that there's violence is the way to get what you want. And teachers, our American teachers in these schools, are setting that poor and, in some cases, deadly example. It's very sad.
Wow. Yeah, not good statistics.
Yeah.
You had, you know about my activism, and you know that a lot of there's incentives because of the American Safe Families Act, which are federal incentives for foster caregivers. But you'd also mentioned something that really kind of hit me to the core the last time you were on the show, that you had a child confide in you of sexual abuse in foster care. And can you share a little bit about that? Because it's an epidemic.
Oh, yeah. You know what? This happens. It is an epidemic. That's the right word. I actually have a number of children who I have interviewed, and it has been this way. Now, the instance that you may be referring to, it could be when I was in the state of Arizona. I was arrested there because a boy was reporting that he was being sexually molested, and